Hey, I'm Claire Wicks, and today I'm going to do a really quick walkthrough of Orchestral Tools' newest string library, Sordino Strings. So before I start, just to go through exactly what Sordino means, for those of you who aren't orchestral players perhaps, it's a particular type of string technique where you have a mute, so literally Sordino with the mute, and the mute goes onto the bridge of the string instrument, and it just dampens the strings a little bit, so it changes the tone, it changes the harmonics in the sound. To me, it sounds warmer and a little bit more intimate. And I also think you'll recognise the sound from a lot of more modern film scores. It's definitely a more modern sound as opposed to the kind of big symphonic string sound, which we heard more in like the noughties and 90s in a lot of film scores. So I'll show you how that sounds now. I did a little demo track for Orchestral Tools over on their Instagram. I'm going to use that as a starting point as it showcased a lot of the techniques, just to take you through exactly what is in this library. It's going to be a bit of a whistle stop, so I'm not going to cover absolutely everything, but I'll get through as much as I can in about the next 10 minutes. Also, a very quick disclaimer before I start, I do work for Orchestral Tools, so I got these libraries for free. However, this is something that I'm just doing for my own channel. I'm not being paid to make this walkthrough. Alright, so just to give you a really quick idea of what there is in this library, I'm going to take you through some of the first violin's articulations. So looking through the list, we've got our sustains legato, and if we look over on the performance page, we've also got the option for a more expressive vibrato. That was with the subtle vibrato. Here it is. All right, we've also got sustains, soft sustains. I'm not going to go through all of these now, but I'll show you some in a bit more detail if you carry on watching. Expressive sustains are non-vibratos. Of course, sol tasto. You couldn't have a muted library and then not also do the most quiet techniques. And having said that, it actually gets even quieter with the col legno tratto. That's playing with the wood of the bow. I love that you can almost hear the shake in the sound there as the bow moves across the string. We've got portatos. Longs and shorts, staccatos of course. And of course we've got spiccatos as well. We've got some rips. Up and down. We've got fifth drops. Again, these are things that actually, they're really hard to recreate. So although you might not use them really often, when you do need it, it's almost impossible to make that effect unless you have it already sampled. We've also got swells. You'll hear some more of them later. I really like those. And tremolos. And of course your playable runs. Alright, so as well as those articulations, of course, in all of your string sections, we've also got the special articulations. I'll show you some of those in the cello just to mix it up a bit, have some low register. So we've got fast tremolo harmonics. I'm just desperate for someone to ask me to score like a nature documentary about glaciers or something so I can use that. I really love that sound. We've also got different speeds of tremolo and harmonic sustains. We've got hotel mutes, tremolos and sustains, arpeggios and luray repetitions, and I'll talk about them in a second as well. So that's just a very, very quick run through of what we've got in terms of articulations in this library. As you can see, it's really extensive. So here it is in practice. All right, so I thought I'd start just with a chord progression using the soft sustain patch. So just to hear a little bit of it on its own, here's how it sounds on the cello. And here it is on the full strings. And so you have a point of comparison. Here's that same chord progression, but now just with the flagship Berlin strings string ensemble. That's just on a full strings patch. And here's Berlin symphonic strings, so the largest string ensemble. You can already hear the difference, even though these are all soft sustain patches, between those and the muted strings. And one thing I really love about this library is that you've also got the option, if you look down here, to turn on a legato version of this. So I've just been using it for chords without the legato because I kind of like a bit of an overlap. But if I turn this on, this is how it sounds. So I really like having that option, and that you're not constrained to just one type of legato or one patch that's a legato patch. So now I'm going to play that same chord progression as before, but I've orchestrated it differently. So here it is. I've used a patch from the first violin's specials articulations, which are these arpeggios. I'll just play you some of those. So you can hear it's just kind of string crossing going up and down, and you've got the option of the major, minor and open version. So open's just fifths. I'll show you what that sounds like. And really atmospheric. So I've combined that with harmonics in the second violins. And I backed that up in the violas with some slow harmonic tremolos. They sound like this. So you can hear the really slow movement of the bow through there. Just gives it a little bit more texture than the harmonic sustains, which are really still. So I combined the two of those, and then lower down I've got the cello, again special articulation, playing on a hotel mute. A hotel mute is basically what you'd use if you were practicing in a hotel and didn't want to get kicked out. So really, really dampens the strings until it can be almost barely audible. Sounds like this. Okay, I'll put it up really loud so you can hear it. That's obviously the tremolo version as well. And the basses are just backing up the cellos with some portatos so that we've got the really low octave in there. They sound like this. if I'm on the right MIDI channel, they actually are audible as well. Let's try it again. So we've got that descending line there in the basses. We've got a couple of options of the portatos in this library. You've got long or short. I'm using the longs here. So that all together sounds like this. So the next version that I've done of this chord progression is based around the Loré repetitions. Someone who speaks French is welcome to correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Anyway, they sound like this. So it's this kind of brushed articulation, and this is the mixed pattern. There's a few different ones. You've got even crotchets and quavers as well. But this mixed pattern is like this syncopated accompaniment, which I really love as a tool for orchestration, because it basically means I can hold down an accompaniment, just hold down a chord, and I've already got some built-in movement in it. So whilst we've got the Loré going on in the violins and violas, building up the kind of basis of the chord pattern, then I thought I'd put in a cheeky little tune in the cello, using the expressive sustains. I'll play you that on its own now. So that's using the sustains expressive patch. All right, and altogether that sounds like this. I really love that this library is kind of lending new ways to actually add some texture to string writing. Much though kind of sustain chords can do the job, I really like a little something extra with my string writing. I mean, I play in an orchestra, so I'm used to kind of sitting in the middle of a string section and actually hearing how much is going on. And when things are really well orchestrated, it's rare that you just have all strings sustaining at the same time. There's usually a kind of a moving part in there somewhere, or just a little bit of rhythm, or indeed a different technique like sol tasto, sol pont, that kind of thing. So speaking of sol tasto, I've included that in the next and last version of this chord progression in the first violins. That sounds like this. And ending with an expressive swell there at the end. Again, you've got a couple of options of swells in this library. You've got long or short, and I really, really like this. It feels more organic than just holding a chord and turning the dynamics up, to actually have string players having performed a crescendo. In fact, I'll play you all those swells together, because I really went for it at the end here. So there's a kind of a warmth to the whole string section actually performing a crescendo together. All right, so in this chord progression, I've also got some moving parts in the middle. So I really like this technique of having moving quavers, but they're in contrary motion. I couldn't resist another little solo line in the cello, which I've got down here. So finally, the basses just have a few sustains to fill out the lower end of the harmony, and they join in on that swell at the end. So here's how it all sounds together. Alright, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments which of these techniques you think you'd use the most, which of these patches that you think you'd use. And I'll see you on the next one. You say potato, I say portato.